Guys, Craig here from fixitfallows again. Something a bit different today. Today I'm out of the garage and I'm out of the house. I'm outside on the driveway. I've got a bit of work to do on the vehicle. It's a Mercedes Vito, a W639, and today we're having a look at the brakes. Okay, so here we are on the front near side front wheel of my Vito. We have in there, you will see we have the brake wear sensor, and it looks like the brake wear sensor goes to the outboard disc, to the outboard pad. So you can't always rely on these sensors, because as I've seen on this, which I'll show you when I strip down, the outboard pad is absolutely okay. The inboard one has worn right the way back down to the back plate, so let me show you that. Okay, so we need to take this assembly off. That's held on by a bolt here and a bolt here, so you just need to take these rubber boots off. Now I have had this all in parts already, so it's going to come up and undone a little bit easier than you might ordinarily find it to be. I've already had these boots off. They took a little bit of prizing off with a spanner. They're actually beginning to perish a bit, probably could do with replacing, but we'll worry about that in a bit. So inside these recesses is a hex headed bolt, so just insert into there and undo these. As I say, look, I've had this undone, so anything's only just hand tight at the moment. These come out like so, pull that out, and the one down there. Now these bolts do hold this entire, what do you want to call it, piston assembly in place. So once you take them out and you remove this piston assembly, you're going to need somewhere to hang it, because otherwise it will be hanging on the pipelines and some wiring and you might stress them out. So what I do is I fashion this wire hook. I hook it up there onto the coil of the shock absorber, and then I hook this assembly over there, and it can hang there happily out of the way. So I'll just do that. Before I do that, you need to take out the brake wear sensor. So a pair of long nose pliers, pull that out of there, okay, and now it can come away. Spin it around a bit and hook it however you can, as best you can, up there, out of the way, like so. So it's hanging there and not stressing out the hose lines. Now we can see the wear sensor, which as I said is on the outboard pad. So let's just pull that off. It's come off there, it's left the spring in. Okay, like so. And now you can see the pad. You can see the wear difference. That's the amount of pad left on the outboard, and there's no pad left on the inboard. Now the car didn't tell me that, other than the grinding noise. So there's usually a reason why one wears quicker than the other, and it's usually to do with these pistons here and here. So these pistons, or guide pins, or slide pins as they're often called, they affect how the whole caliper moves back and forwards when you press the brake. So you apply pressure, pistons squeeze. When you let your foot off the brake, the caliper's meant to retreat. But when one of them pistons is stuck, the whole caliper can't move properly, and it causes this part of the brake to apply pressure unevenly, and one side or the other will wear. Alright, so let's get these pads out, shall we? go, there's the outboard. I mean, that's still good life in it. I mean, look at that, it's a shame to have to bin that. Whereas, look at the state of that, it's gone right down to where there's a rivet. Now that rivet would have left a score line on the inside of this disc. These discs need replacing. I'll show you that in a second. Let's take this pad carriers out, like so. And then we need to remove this whole brake assembly from the hub before we can take the disc off. There are these bolts on the back here. Like so, as I say, I've undone all this already, so I'm not having to put much effort in. One bolt. Second bolt, and then the whole assembly comes away. So now we want to take the disc off. The disc is held in by this one little hex head screw there. When the wheel's on, you have your 5 studs going there, which holds the disc on nice and firmly. This one's just a locating one, so we'll put that. So need a smaller hex head. That goes in there like that. And off it comes. Out that comes, put that somewhere safe. And there's the disc off. Now then, look at this scoring on the inside of this disc. That correlates. That scoring correlates with that stud there on the worn pad. If you were to put a new set of pads on here, you would get a very uneven wear, probably a lot of noise. These discs are done. They've done their job, they need replacing. Okay, before you put your new disc on, you want to give a good clean to this surface here, because any little particles on there will cause your new disc to not sit true and flat, and you will get a vibration and a wobble. So clean off. And make sure it's nice and clean for the new disc. Okay, here are new discs, nice and shiny. There we go, 1 and 2. And we'll put some brake cleaner on the new brakes, new discs. Okay, they're good to go on. Okay, line up the hole. Like so. And put that lock in. Make sure it's on nice and tight. Ah, there you see, there you go. All done. Okay, now right, the brake assembly needs to go back on over the disc. Obviously we've got a new disc, we're going to have new pads, it's all going to be a lot wider. Those pistons are currently the width of the old pads and the old disc, so they need to be pushed back into the body of the brake a bit to give some room. Now if you're lucky you can push them back just by pushing a spanner against them, or you can buy a what they call a piston retarder, or you can make one. So this is just a bit of threaded rod with two bits of wood with a couple of spacers, and it goes in there, and when you do up the nuts it pushes the wooden plates apart and pushes the piston back into the brake caliper. So I'll give that a go now. There we go, so I've got it in there, and now I'll just take a spanner, keep on moving this nut, that pushes these two wooden plates apart and pushes that piston back inside. There you go, both retarded back in. Hopefully that's enough. Might have to do it again once we offer it up and find that the pads and discs are too wide, but you can just do that again. Out these two pistons, that one's stuck, that one moves, so this one's the problem. We'll have a look at that. So you can see on this one, which is good, it actually does rotate a bit and will move up and down on those. You see the bellows moving there, and it will rotate. This one is well and truly jammed, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pair of mold grips on there, see if a little bit of a twist it will come free, take it out and re-grease it. Okay, so this is well and truly stuck. So using the threaded bar and plates that I use for compressing the brake pistons, I've now changed it around a bit, put the bar through this piston, and I'm going to try and squeeze these two plates together in order to break whatever rusted seal there is and free this little piston. We'll give it a go. Okay, so I finally got this piston out of there. It was so jammed in. What I've had to do is build up some blocks here, put like an anvil under there so that the caliper sits on there. Obviously this is so that I don't have to detach the brake lines, otherwise I would have detached the brake lines and took it into the garage. I then slid this pin up through there, which also passed through the stuck piston with the pin in place, all of that solid support underneath. I then hammered down on top of the caliper here, and that drove this piston out. I can now put that in a drill, spin it around with some sandpaper, polish up the surfaces, clean inside of there, re-grease it, and it should all be good to go. Okay, now for some grease on that caliper and then on the guide pin piston. Okay, now that the caliper is all repaired, the pistons here and here move okay. They're retracted in. Now I just need to put the caliper carrier back on, which I'll do now. Okay, now the springs can go back in. pads to go in next. There we are, new pads, nice and thick. Look at the size of those. Right, now the wear sensor goes on. I'm actually going to put the old one back on because the old one came from the outboard side, and as you saw, the outboard side was nowhere near worn, so that's fine to go back on. Okay, yeah, so here's the original one. The metal spring's back on there, and that can go either here or here. I'm going to put it back on the outboard one, even though it didn't work for me last time, but I've fixed the piston there, so it should be alright this time around. Pushes in like so. The wire stuck up like that. Now the caliper. Let's see if they're attractive enough. Passing the wear indicator plug through, like so, and then there we go. A little bit of teasing into place. Use the new pins that come with the pads to lock this in place. Done. Put the sensor back in. There we go, like that. Disc still spins. That's good. Now, for the caps, I'm going to put a bit of grease on the end of these. Just try and stop a bit of the moisture getting in there. Okay, now time for the caps to go back over. Go, they're on. Not forgetting to take off the hook we made to keep the caliper hanging out of the way. Take that off. And there we are. A new disc, new pads and revitalised pistons. all to do now. Straighten the wheel up, straighten the hub up, put the wheel on, drop it down and do the other side.